দীপেন, শোনা যাচ্ছে? তোমার কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে
হ্যাঁ,
না।
আমার কথা। Good morning, good evening. আমার নাম দীপেন ভট্টাচার্য. I have been with Ben since its initial days. Today is our regular Ben webinar event, and it's a very interesting theme, Energy Future of Bangladesh. So, as we always do, it will be a mixture of, as the participants will talk both in English and Bangla as they feel comfortable. We have an audience which has both Bengali and non-Bengali speakers. So, I'll not. So, without much ado, I will call Dr. Mohammad Khaliquzaman, who is a professor of geology and oceanography at the Commonwealth University of Pennsylvania, but he is also the global coordinator of BEN. If you don't know Dr. Khaliquzaman, he's a specialist, is a geologist and specialist also on various aspects of Bangladesh geology and environment, and have written numerous books, as well as, of course, professional papers. So I will ask Dr. Khaliquzaman to take the stage. Please, it's about a few minutes to introduce today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dipen Bhattacharya, and welcome to our, I believe it's the 13th webinar, bi-monthly webinar organized by Bangladesh Environment Network, BEN. BEN is a global organization that has membership across the, all the, in many countries in the world, but specifically we have our very strong presence in the United States, Canada, UK, and I believe in South Korea, Australia, and few other countries. So we, since we have non-Bengali speaker in the audience, that's why we are speaking in Bangla. I'll request our speaker as well to give their presentation in English, in the honor of our non-Bengali audience here. So welcome to all. We already informally introduced ourselves before the beginning of the presentation. I also welcome here Dr. Nazrul Islam, who joined just few minutes ago, who is the founder of Bangladesh Environment Network. He is also the Vice President of Bangladesh Paribesh Andolan, BAPA, which is a organization, our sister organization or our partner organization in Bangladesh. So there are a lot of participants today from Bangladesh, some of whom I know, like Dr. Farhadur Reza. So I'm really heartened and very encouraged to see a good participation from Bangladesh and from other countries in the world. So since it's a very important topic, energy is always very important for Bangladesh. And from the title, you have noticed that it has a very question mark. So question mark Bangladesh energy, environment, future of Bangladesh environment, energy environment. So energy, I mean. So Dr. Ahmed Badruzzaman, who is who is chairing this session today, he is also the chair of the energy expert panel of Ben. Ben has several expert panels. Energy is one of those experts panels, and he chairs that panel. And Mr. Ghulam Kobir, who is presenting today, he is also a member of that energy panel. And so Dr. Ahmed Badruzzaman probably will, when he summarizes or when he gives his spiel, he probably will explain why the future of Bangladesh energy with a question mark. So that is going to be very interesting to hear. So without a further ado, so I turn it back to Dr. Dipen Bhattacharya. Enjoy the presentation.
Dhanyabad, Dr. Khaliquzaman. So I'm inviting now Dr. Ahmed Badruzzaman. He is the chair for this session. Just Dr. Khalik already has said a few words about Dr. Badruzzaman. He is a professional faculty, University of California at Berkeley. but he's also the chair of Bangladesh Environment Network Energy and Environment Panel. I must say a few lines about his achievements. He's an author of over 50 papers, 2 US patents, and an upcoming textbook on nuclear technologies. He's a fellow of the American Nuclear Society and a recipient of several technical awards from professional societies. Served as an editor of the technical journal Petrophysics, and a proponent of technology transfer, has spoken on his research around the globe, and been 2-time distinguished lecturer speaker at the Society of Petroleum Engineers and the Society of Petrophysicists, consultant of International Atomic Energy Agency, and so on. Actually, it's a long resume, a long list of his achievements. I asked Dr. Badruzzzaman to take the floor. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my slide?
Yeah, we can see
Okay.
your slide.
So, interestingly, we had a long conversation on why this title, and it'll become evident when I show my next slide. Is why I have questions on the.
Sorry to interrupt. You have to be in the full window. The presentation is not in the presentation mode.
Can you see it?
We can see it. Yeah, I think he wants you to start the slideshow, actually.
Okay. So I started it. I'm on the first slide. Can you see the title slide?
উপরে বাঁয়ে from beginning এ ক্লিক করেন বদুজান ভাই
কি করব?
উপরে বাঁয়ে from beginning লেখা যেখানে ওই জায়গাটায় ক্লিক করেন তাহলে এটা ফুল স্ক্রিন আরেকটু নিচে আরেকটু উপরে উপরে একদম এখানে
Yes.
এটা
আরেকটু নিচে
হ্যাঁ
না
একটু উপরে বাঁয়ে
আরেকটু বাই যান slightly
Left.
Yeah, right there.
এখানে
No.
এখানে গেলে তো আমার co-pilot চলে আসছে।
It says from beginning. I don't know whether he sees it actually.
Down.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
right here,
Yes,
right here,
click
right
it
here.
Slideshow, resume slideshow, okay? এখন দেখতে পাচ্ছেন?
No,
আপনি ক্লিক করেননি ওখানে
it should be screen should be bigger.
Screen should be bigger.
It should be a regular slideshow.
না বদরুজ্জামান ভাই lower right corner এ যান lower right corner
Lower right corner.
yeah slightly right no
Okay.
slightly above slightly higher go right there here click
Okay.
it
এখন হচ্ছে?
yes now click it
করলাম তো কিছু হচ্ছে না তো।
Right, I see. Well,
আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে আপনি
it's
এভাবেই
okay.
চালিয়ে যান বোঝা যাচ্ছে দেখা
Yeah,
যাচ্ছে
well, it's okay. Let's continue.
Okay. So the reason is question mark, and I have a bunch of questions, and a lot of people do too. There was an event at Berkeley yesterday. I teach at Berkeley on energy. It's organized by students, and I gave a similar talk, not on Bangladesh, but many around the world, issues around the world. And this is a question mark because we are at a conundrum. So, couple of facts to note. We all know that energy is a key determinant of a nation's economic future. There is no question about it. And Bangladesh faces a major conundrum with energy choices versus impact of pollution and global warming. Bangladesh has been hugely reliant, for its power at least, on its domestic natural gas. Sorry, the gas got cut out. And it has made a big difference. In the last 2 decades, 15 years I'd say, major energy projects were undertaken in Bangladesh. And they were all based on import. And I have them in red. Coal-based plants, LNG, liquid fuel, nuclear. Domestic gas exploration and production was sidelined in my view. Some people are pushing for solar and wind. I have even seen some people coming to me and saying, okay, can we use agricultural land? Especially their foreign advisors are asking that. So my question is, do all of these above, I'm not saying they don't. All I'm asking, do they make sense? Are there other options? And you'll hear about some of them today from our other speakers. And one thing to remember, power sector in Bangladesh is not the largest emitter of CO2 in the country. In 2022, Bangladesh produced 58 million metric tons of CO2 versus 32 billion metric tons by the US. So we are a very small player in that CO2 production. One item that I was able to dig up from the promise Bangladesh made at the Paris Climate Treaty is how much CO2 they are going to produce by 2030. So Bangladesh promised that their power sector production would be 91 million metric tons, because we will grow from our 21 million to 91 million. And you can see that transport and industry, those have a bigger footprint in Bangladesh. So power sector is not a big player, and it will not be a big player. So relatively large greenhouse gas in power and industry sector, but a modest decline. The government was promising that we'll reduce it by 5%, so we'll go to 85%, 85 million metric tons. So keep those numbers in mind as we converge on this discussion. So I'll turn it back to Dr. Bhattacharya, and I'll come back at the end of the presentation to give a sort of few comments on my observations of what I heard today. Also, as our speaker, the fourth speaker, Dr. Badrul Karim, got sick. I've been talking to him endlessly the last few days. So what I have done is I have taken some of he sent me a whole bunch of papers and slides, not slides, actually PDF files. And so I made one slide out of that to share his views at the end of, as the fourth speaker. I hope I can do justice to what he has sent me and what he's an expert on that. So with that, I turn it back to Dr. Dipen Bhattacharya.
Thank you, Dr.
I need to
Badrul.
unshare, right? Or you can cut me off.
Please
You have to
unshare.
stop the sharing.
Okay.
It should be in the
Okay, I
bottom.
got it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Badruzaman, for such a nice introduction to the subject. It's an important thing that today we're discussing. Our first speaker is Mr. Ghulam Kabir. His talk will be on renewable fuel for Bangladesh. Mr. Ghulam Kabir is a chemical engineer with broad technical training, quality assurance, and management background in the petroleum industry. He holds a Master of Science degree in chemical engineering from the Institute of Petroleum and Chemical Technology, Baku, Azerbaijan. Completed advanced production engineering course from Texas A&M, and currently working for a company in Oklahoma, Sevier Energy, as a laboratory manager for a refinery. He has also acquired extensive experience in Bangladesh energy sector by working for Petrobangla over 8 years and member of Society of Petroleum Engineers, and actively participating in energy-related environmental issue of Bangladesh. Please, Mr. Kabir, the floor is yours. I will just, one more thing is that I will actually give you a warning at 13-minute time. Everybody gets about 15 minutes time today, and then, there will be a warning at 13 minutes. Thank you.
So, are you going to put my slides on the screen?
No, you possibly have to do this. I don't have them actually. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Azam, do you have this, or Irfan?
No, I don't have it, but if we can have it from Dr. Badruzaman, we can, or Dr. Mr. Kabir, we can.
Yeah, Dr. Badruzaman has it, but I also have it, but I thought that you...
Kabir, why don't you show them? Because it's easier for you to control the flow. Just take a minute to set up and to do it. Somebody else doing the slides, it doesn't always work out very well. As you saw, I'm having trouble with my own slides, so.
Okay, so I was not prepared for it, so I have to go to my slides now.
দীপেন্দা আপনি পরবর্তী বক্তাকে ডাকতে পারেন উনি প্রস্তুত হতে হতে যদি এতে অসুবিধা না
Yeah.
থাকে
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Okay. Let me take a second here. Yeah, let's just switch gears a little bit as Mr. Golan Kabir sets up his slides. So the next speaker would be, I hope Dr. Masood Karim is prepared. His talk will be on floating solar potential in Bangladesh, renewable energy from water bodies. Dr. Karim is in Canada right now, and he is the lead manager of, my apologies, lead manager of Environment, Health and Safety, GEEC Limited in Canada. And he has an extensive resume that you can see it on LinkedIn if you want. He's a doctoral degree in civil engineering, licensed professional engineering in the province of Ontario, Canada, and a project management professional from Project Management Institute of USA. Major expertise are environmental assessment of infrastructures, occupational health and safety, cumulative impact assessment, and so on and so forth. And he has done numerous feasibility study of different power plants all over the world. Expert in this field. We are extremely lucky to have Dr. Karim in our midst, and he has been associated with Ben almost from its initial days. Please, Mr. Karim, the floor is yours. I will give you a warning at 13 minutes time. You get a total of 15 minutes. Thank you.
Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you, Dr. Dipen Bhattacharya Dipenda, after a long time.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you all. So my presentation would be on, as you said, floating solar potential in Bangladesh and renewable energy from water bodies. I will try to all right, so I will try to finish the presentation as quick as possible. The topics I'm going to cover would be floating solar system components, and then advantages and challenges of floating solar plants, then global case studies, and the floating solar plants under planning in South Asia. And I think those who are not speaking now, could you just mute yourself so that it would be easier. Then prospects of floating solar plants in Bangladesh and floating solar project, a case study. I was involved in a 300 megawatt floating solar plant in Pakistan. So I'll bring some example from that project with the challenges and then the advantages also. And the components of a floating solar plant is, the first one is mounting raft. Then the panels and modules, anchoring and mooring systems. Then active current cabling, medium voltage transformers, power transmission systems, maintenance access, and then constructability. So this is a schematic of a typical floating solar plants. The advantages of floating solar PV system is because we'll be using the water bodies and land acquisition. The other alternative is floating PV system in land-based system, which is extremely difficult, especially in Bangladesh, the land acquisition, and also very expensive as well in other parts of the world as well. So water bodies will give a better advantage of reducing the cost and then long acquisition avoidances. Then efficiency improvement, because it is installed in the water bodies. The cooling effect of water reduces solar panel temperatures enhancing energy conversion efficiency, minimizing thermal stress, and prolonging panel lifespan for consistent energy output. Water conservation through the reduction of the evaporation, because the water body is covered by the panels. So whatever used to be, reduced due to evaporation, that will also be minimized through the covering of the water body. The environmental benefits are number one, of course, is the greenhouse gas emission reduction, and the alternative is fossil fuels. So as Professor Badrujaman was indicating, carbon dioxide emission, and that will be in any renewable energy. Carbon dioxide is zero, right? With renewable energy, and improve water quality by limiting sunlight, reducing algae blooms. Then low impact on aquatic life. In some cases, if we compare with floating solar system with other infrastructure constructed in the water bodies, compared to that, the environmental impacts would be minimal. Then careful design and placement of floating solar system can also ensure minimal disruption, promoting coexistence with ecosystems. Then reduce transmission losses. Most of the floating solar system are planned, designed, and constructed close to the hydropower reservoirs or water bodies close to the urban centers. So since existing hydropower plants already has the transmission system available, and urban center also has the distribution system, they can easily be hooked and connected with the existing system. That's how the transmission cost would be the minimal. Then scalability, floating solar installations are modular and scalable, making them suitable for both small communities and large industrial needs. Compared to other power generation system, because every system has certain capacity, and you cannot, construct other mode of power generation in a smaller community. So floating solar system has the advantage, you can scale it depending on the demand of the serving community will be serving. Then lower levelized cost. The average lifetime cost of electricity generation was 56% lower for solar PV in 2023 estimates compared to fossil fuels, underscoring its economic and sustainable advantages. The challenges of floating solar plants, initial high investment cost, although the panel cost has been significantly reduced now, so it is much cheaper than 10 or 15 years before. Then technical maintenance is another challenge. The environmental concerns, then weather vulnerability, especially extreme weather cases, and then regulatory hurdles. Then global cases of studies of floating solar plant. The number one is in China, the biggest 150 megawatt in Anhui province was installed in Huinan Reservoir, approximately 790 acres, and commissioned in 2018. Then the next one is Japan, Yamakura Dam Reservoir, hosts 13.7 megawatt floating solar plant, covering 18 hectares of land with 50,000 photovoltaic panels. In India, Kayamkulam, 92 megawatt, and in Kerala, and Ramagundan, 100 megawatt in Telangana. And in Netherlands, Seringen Solar Park, 41.1 megawatt, and Weaver Mid-Jes Solar Park, 29.8 megawatt. Major plants under preparation in South Asia. In Bangladesh, 100 megawatt floating solar photovoltaic power plant in Modarganj, Jamalpur. And then there is another one in Mullahat in Mullahat in Bagherhat. That's around 200 megawatt. I think both of them are the feasibility study was conducted by the CGIS. One of the staff also they joined today. And in India, 500 megawatt Asian Development Bank funded West Bengal floating solar project in Bakreshwar Dam Reservoir. And then in Pakistan, floating solar in Pakistan project funded by World Bank, 300 megawatt in Gaji, Barrage, Head Pond, and Fort Bay. This is the one I was involved in.
Masud Karim কি ফ্রিজ করে গেল?
He's okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're back. You're back. Yes.
Okay, all right. Then the Sri Lanka one is USAID funded 100 megawatt floating solar project in Castlereagh. Now, this is what the presentation is. I would like to run a few slides from a case study in Pakistan. As I mentioned, it is in two different locations, 150 megawatt each. Site one is Gaji Head Pond. Gaji Head Pond is actually a head pond of Tarbela Reservoir, Tarbela Hydropower Plant Reservoir, and then they diverted water from Gaji Reservoir through an artificial canal, and then transfer all the water to Gaji Barota. That's another hydropower plant. So Gaji Barota 4 bays in the lower side, in the south side. So site one is at Gaji Head Pond, located in Tarbela Reservoir, and the second one is Gaji Barota 4 bay at the south side. So there are two ponds. One is in the north pond, and the south pond is in the 4 bay of Gaji Barota. And north pond was used for the floating solar generation. As far as Gaji Barrage Head Pond, both of them has capacity, as I said, 150 megawatt. Area of water for Gaji Barrage Head Pond is 800 hectare, and Gaji Barota 4 bay North Pond is 400 hectare. Area of panel 165 for each. So 21% of the water body coverage was used for Gaji Barrage Head Pond, and for Gaji Barota 4 bay 41%. So 21% and 41%. These are the system configuration modules, DC cabling configuration, inverter and quantity, inverter configuration. So this is more of the system design, and mooring configuration, self-weighted bed anchoring. So this is an outline design drawing for the system. So the mooring lines are anchored at the base of the water body through the concrete, and then all the mooring lines at the middle has a concrete block to sustain the water level. So this is the center one. You see, I mean, when water level reduces, the anchor system, look like this one. This is an installation, how it works. They install the panels in the land and then use the mechanical means to move the panels in the water body. And then this project was done under for the funding of the World Bank. So we have to use World Bank's Environmental Social Framework. And the ESF has 4 categories of risk: high, substantial, moderate, and low. And for the environmental and health and safety risk, we have identified risk of falling in the water and drowning during installation of panels over water is substantial during construction. Then pollution of surface water due to the cleaning of accumulated bird droppings during operation stage, substantial for Site 2, because Site 2 acquires 41% of the water body. And the changes to water quality, thermal structure, and evaporation rate as a result of shading, that's also substantial for Site 2. Impacts on fish from shading and anchoring, cabling. At the operation stage, again, Site 2 has substantial impact. Then impact on migratory birds and their habitats. For Site 2 is substantial. And aquatic habitat degradation as a result of altered quantity of bird droppings is also substantial for Site 2. For risk of falling into water and drowning, mitigation or control measures recommended, because we have to use hierarchy of mitigation hierarchy and hierarchy of control. Elimination can only be done if the construction is on the land. And the substitution was planned by assembling panels and connect arrays on land. So the elimination, total elimination of the project, that means, instead of water body, if the power plant is set up on the land. So that's how the risk of falling into the water can be eliminated. So since the water body has been planned and designed for the installation of the power plant, we propose the substitution mechanism of assembling panels and connect arrays on land and then use mechanical means, mechanical equipment to push them over the water. Then engineering control, use fence and safety nets, use strong, stable and wide walkways or workplace over water so that maintenance operation can be smoother. Then administrative control was proposed to train workers, devise a rescue plan to comply with adverse weather, and then provide life jackets to the workers who will be involved in the operation of the.
You have 2 minutes, Dr. Karim.
Yes, thank you. And then impacts on surface water due to cleaning and accumulated bark droppings. So minimization could be clean the panels frequently during bird migration period. Droppings should not be disposed into the water body. Changes in water quality. So these are the slides I can share. Those whoever is interested, I want to go because I don't have time. The last slide. Yeah, this is what I want to speak. For prospects of floating solar plants in Bangladesh, Kaptai Lake, Hakaluki Hawar, and Chalan Bill. These are the 3 major water bodies in Bangladesh. The largest one is Kaptai Lake. And if we use 10% of the water surface that can generate 6,200 megawatt of the electricity, compared to the Pakistan one, 21%, 41%. This one, say if we use only 10%, 6,200 can be generated. The investment cost would be 6.2 billion at 2021 price. And with the reduction of the panel prices, the investment cost can be significantly reduced maybe in next 10 years as well. And then Hakaluki Hawar also, the 10% of the water body utilization, 1,600 megawatt power can be generated with $1.6 billion investment. Then finally, the Chalan Bill, again 10% utilization, 3,300 megawatt power can be generated with $3.3 billion investment. So thank you. This is my presentation. If you have questions, you're welcome to ask. And then this is my email address also. If anyone is interested to contact, please feel free to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karim, Masood Karim. That was a wonderful presentation, and I think we'll have a lot of questions. প্রশ্নের ব্যাপারে আপনাদের যদি প্রশ্ন থাকে পাশে চ্যাট বক্সে লিখতে পারেন, and then what we'll do is that at the end of all presentations, we will have a regular discussion where the presenters can come back again and show whatever if they think that they missed. So thank you again for your presentation. I personally learned a lot, of course. So I will actually invite back Mr. Ghulam Kabir. Hopefully this time we'll have the slides on. Sorry about that, Mr. Kabir. Please go ahead.
I was confused. I thought that it
okay.
would be.
Yeah.
So Irfan has my slides. Can you put it up, Irfan?
Yeah, I
Yes,
think
I can.
he's working on it. So I just want to say that, as I said, that you will have questions. Please put this up on the chat box or just hold on to it. একদম শেষে আমাদের সুযোগ থাকবে এই নিয়ে বিস্তারিত আলোচনা করার। আমরা তো 15 মিনিট করে বক্তাদের সময়টা ধরে রাখছি।
So by the time Irfan puts up these slides, let me just throw an introduction.
Go ahead.
Because my expertise is in energy related. So I worked in the energy field in Bangladesh and also here. So today my talk is that we would benefit from going into some renewable energy. So for right now, Bangladesh is 100% dependent on, not 100%, almost 100% on fossil fuel, either natural gas or imported crude oil. But my suggestion is, next slide, please. So as you can see, I got this from the Global Energy that Bangladesh consumes about 80,000 barrels of diesel per day. And also Bangladesh consumes about 15,000 barrels gasoline per day. So my proposal is, if we can make part of the diesel consumption from renewable sources, and then we can benefit at least 20%. Slides are moving faster. So anyway, so what
Please
is
give
my
me feedback.
suggestion?
So
Yeah,
should
can
we go
you
back or forward?
back? I'll just tell you when
Is
to
it okay?
go forward. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So what my suggestion is to get renewable diesel at least 20% of the consumption. And for gasoline, we can already add 15% ethanol to gasoline, because all cars made today are designed to run on at least 15% ethanol. But in Bangladesh, we are not adding ethanol, which at least we can reduce 15% consumption of fossil fuel. Next slide, please. So because of the general concern of CO2 emission, the world is going to renewable diesel. In US, we have started producing renewable diesel from soybean oil and corn oil. And soybean oil can be, from soybean oil, we are getting diesel which meets the specification of ASTM D975, which is the standard for the diesel fuel. So what we do is from the vegetable oil, we react with hydrogen at elevated temperature and pressure in a catalytic reactor. And this produces hydroprocessed diesel, which makes exactly the characteristics of the fossil diesel. In my refinery where I work, we have a unit which produces renewable diesel, and we are selling this to California, because California is big on this renewable diesel product. Next slide, please. So I am trying to, I'm not going to go deep into this, but I'll give you a brief description how we can make renewable diesel out of soybean oil or corn oil. Also, we can make renewable diesel from coconut oil. So there are two terms you might be familiar with. Biodiesel. Biodiesel is produced by transesterification of fatty acid. What is this process is it reacts with alcohol in the presence of a catalyst for biodiesel production. But biodiesel is different from renewable diesel. Renewable diesel is hydrocarbon diesel, which is produced by hydroprocessing of renewable feedstock like hydrotreated vegetable oil. So feedstock is generally soybean oil, corn oil. So what we do is the process is we remove oxygen and saturate to double bonds, isomerize, reduce endpoint by cracking. So when we process it through hydrolysis and then heat it, we reduce the endpoint, crack it, and then we can make renewable diesel or renewable jet. And in Bangladesh, we have enough coconut. So if we can make coconut oil, which can be chemically reacted with an alcohol like methanol or ethanol, in the presence of a catalyst like sodium or potassium hydroxide. This process converts oil's fatty acids into alkyl esters, which are known as biodiesel. So we can produce biodiesel from coconut. We can produce, if we start thinking ahead, we can make soybean oil in all these areas which are not used right now. So if we can make soybean oil or corn oil, and we can make renewable diesel from those sources. Next slide, please. So this just gives you a brief description of how this Hydroflex unit works. So we have simple triglyceride like distiller's corn oil or tallow or soybean oil. What we do is we just protect from contaminants. There are some filtration process, and then remove oxygen, saturate double bonds, isomerize, then reduce endpoint, crack, and then we get diesel, which is called renewable diesel, which in our refinery, we have a hydrogen processing plant. So we can invest some money and make a unit to produce renewable diesel or renewable jet in our existing refinery. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Click, okay. Is it okay? This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
So this gives you a brief description of how all this process works. I'm not going to go details into it. If anyone is interested, can get my slides and read through it. What we are proposing is traditional hydrotreating, which are currently used in US in petroleum refineries. Hydrotreating involves reaching the feedstock with hydrogen under elevated temperature and pressures. That's the process we are proposing. And there are biological sugar upgrading, catalytic conversion of sugars, pyrolysis, hydrothermal processing. So I'm not going to go deep into those processes, but the processes we are suggesting or we are currently using is hydrotreating of soybean oil to make diesel. Next slide, please. So this is another thing. What we can do is production of ethanol. Bangladesh produces a lot of sugar cane, and ethanol can easily be produced from sugar cane. Brazil is home to the world's largest fleet of vehicles that use ethanol. So many cars even are now designed to run on E85 fuel. E85 means 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. But this 15% gasoline is needed. You cannot run a car only on ethanol because you need some light volatile material for catching fire. So you need at least 15% gasoline, but you can run a car with 85% ethanol. Besides from that, you can easily add 15% ethanol without changing any engine specification, because all cars nowadays are ready to go on 15% ethanol. So if we can make some ethanol from our sugarcane, which we do produce in Bangladesh, because you know Keru company makes ethanol, or we call Bangla Mod, but this is Keru company makes ethanol from sugarcane. So all these sugar industries, they can easily make ethanol from sugarcane and add to the gasoline. That will reduce the fossil fuel at least by 15% immediately. Next slide, please. So this is the process how you can make ethanol from sugarcane. So from sugarcane juice, it is done by fermentation. So ethanol is made by fermentation, and after fermenting the ethanol juice, I mean sugarcane juice, and then through fermentation you can make ethanol, and that ethanol can be added to gasoline for volatility reduction, for the carbon dioxide reduction, and you can reduce at least 15% of fossil fuel. Next slide, please. So this is I got from the internet, Bangladesh energy consumption. So how much we produce and how much we are consuming. So we don't produce, they're saying that we do produce some crude oil, but that's not actually crude oil, that's come from natural gas. From natural gas, we get condensate, and by processing that condensate, we do make some diesel and gasoline. So that's what they're saying, how much we produce and how much we consume. So, but based on that, on the diesel, we can use some renewable. We have to make some plan, and we have to have a plan to go for some renewable energy, to make some renewable diesel from soybean or corn oil or coconut oil. And for gasoline, we can start producing ethanol to add to gasoline to reduce the consumption of fossil fuel. Next slide, please. So that is actually my presentation. So it will reduce the emissions. It will reduce both carbon dioxide and nitrogen oxide emissions when compared with petroleum diesel. California's low carbon fuel standard certified carbon intensifies and shows that renewable diesel reduces the standard by 65% when compared with, reduces the carbon intensity on average by 65% when compared with petroleum diesel. So we are benefiting in both ways. We are reducing carbon intensity, we are benefiting for our environment, and we are benefiting for the money-wise. If we can import less crude oil, that will help us in the long run for Bangladesh environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ghulam Kabir. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm sure that there'll be questions at the end, and we will continue on this discussion. Our next presentation is by Dr. Hossein Azam, and the title is Sustainable Renewable Energy for Buildings and Agriculture in Bangladesh. Dr. Hossein Azam is working as a tenured associate professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C., USA. He has a MSc in Water Resources and Environmental Engineering from North Carolina State University, and BSc in BUET from BUET. Also worked at military MIST, Military Institute of Science and Technology. And he has secured funding from several federal agencies as, National Science Foundation, Department of Defense, USDA, NASA, and so on and so forth. Currently, he advises many undergraduate and graduate students for research and advising about 8 master's students and 2 PhD students at UDC. We're fortunate to have Dr. Azam among us. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya. Thanks for the nice introduction. I'm sharing my slides now, and hopefully you can all can see in the full window. Can you guys all see the full window?
Yes.
Thank you so much. And so I will get started with our chair's comment, Dr. Badiuzzzaman, about growing crops under solar or renewables. And that's a very valid question to explore, but I think we should explore it for Bangladesh. I'll make the case in my presentation. One thing I must disclaim, I should provide disclaimer is that this is a very interdisciplinary nature of research and applications for real life. So I have a big team that I work with, and I don't know the answer for everything, but I will try my best for explaining the concept to you and how we can apply it in Bangladesh. Another disclaimer is that this presentation you can see on the top, the Ben University of District of Columbia and SUNY Canton State University of New York Canton slides has been logo has been used, but this opinion I'm sharing here is my personal opinion. It doesn't reflect their opinion. And one more thing I must say that this type of concept is a very early stage of development, but it is growing really, really fast, and Bangladesh should be in the forefront of this. And I really hope that after my talk, and of course, there are some other people who are also thinking about adopting this type of approach. But all the approach and methods that I'm discussing here should be vetted well and should be well researched and investigated with the context of Bangladesh rather than around the world. So with that, I'm going to go forward with my presentation. So we'll give you quick background on motivation on renewable, especially for buildings and agriculture. And then we'll talk about some specific examples, how we can incorporate them and some results that we generated. Again, those results, I would classify them as preliminary results, but we are making good progress. And then briefly mention some environmental challenges with barriers for renewable energy adoption in Bangladesh. So quickly, as you probably know, that renewable energy should supply 70 to 85% of world electricity by 2050 if we want to meet the Paris climate goal and limit the global warming. But so far now, we are in Bangladesh, we have the capacity of 4.5% of Bangladesh total power capacity through renewables. Of course, we have a very lofty goals of achieving 15% by 2030, 40% around 2041, and 100% by 2050. Which almost, but to meet that target, where we stand right now, almost 90% of energy in Bangladesh right now is produced with fossil fuel. So if you look at the budget that we put, so around 11.4% of the 68 billion total budget that we have yearly in 2024-25, 11.4% went to power and energy sector, okay? And is almost like a $8 billion. But I will show you in a second that how that number is different for the goal that we have, right? So developed countries like Sweden, like Finland, USA, they have significant share of renewable energy in their energy generation. And also in developing countries like India, Brazil, Indonesia, they have significant fraction. So if you look here, about the total budget, I showed you on the left that the total power and energy sector budget, less than 1% is being invested right now in to renewable energy projects and expand off-grid solar. Though we talk a lot about it, we don't have a lot of investment. I looked through literature and found that we at least need annual investment of like $1.53 to $1.71 billion to meet that 40% target that we have by 2041. So right now you can see it should be like 19.5 to 1.1% of the power and energy sector budget should go into renewables, where you can see is the less than 1% right now. We are at right now 2025. So you can see how we are lagging behind. We have all this policy and target, but we are not seeing that on the field as action. So we need a lot of investment to really meet that goal and with our sustainable development and economic growth that we are talking about. So I'm not going to go over too much details because it's a very short talk, 15 minutes, but I just want to give you some perspective. The building sector has a significant amount of world energy consumption, like 30%. And then in the world, 15% energy of the building energy use come from renewable. For Bangladesh, building sector account almost like 30% of total electricity use, but very small percentage of energy use for the building comes from renewables, which we can change. We don't have exact data reported. If anybody knows, please let me know, but I looked and couldn't find it. On the other hand, on the agricultural sector, 30% of world energy consumption happens for agriculture. And for Bangladesh, it's around like 5.3% that total energy consumption happened for agricultural sector. But renewable energy use in agriculture is minimally reported, and globally, almost 15.4% energy for agriculture actually come from renewable sources. So you can see we are actually behind than the rest of the world, how they are proceeding forward. And I will try to make a case that we should at least try and see whether that can be changed for Bangladesh. So what we did, because of that time, I want to focus a lot more on the implementation side. I'll briefly mention that design of an integral and optimized system for renewables for buildings is definitely possible. And we can also grow crop or food in the buildings in green roof to provide additional benefit. And we did some study on this. And we briefly show that for your reference. On the left-hand side, I will not have time to go over, but it shows that how we can actually, for different energy type, what steps could be adopted to be including them for mainly for buildings and other purposes collectively, okay? So I'm not going to go into details of it, but you can see there are different advantages that you can get out of those energy type. So this is, we want to use renewable energy in buildings. So solar photovoltaic is a way. There are a lot of early stage work on the building augmented turbine. For wind turbine you can use. I have done some work with some other departmental experts on combined cooling and heating and power system for buildings, which can be kind of optimized in the microgrid level so that our overall energy outcome and energy use is optimized, and we have a increased energy efficiency system. So traditionally we have this type of system. You can see like you have the building and you have the grid electricity comes, and we have some other system. But we want to change it a little bit and see if we can adopt some advanced way to adopt energy neutrality or energy efficiency for building. Of course, there is a big component to it, and we are not touching it too much yet. That's the cost with it, and then we'll touch that in the results section. So just briefly, I did not do a lot of work yet incorporating solar and everything with green roof, but green roof clearly shows that it has a definite impact on the temperature difference, and it has a positive impact on urban heat island impact, or it can provide additional revenue for food. And if you have solar, as I told you, it can give you energy for your building, and you don't need to rely on outside electricity. And then we can have a sustainable building that can supply his food and also electricity of its own. Of course, we have to look into the building code and how we can retrofit them to existing buildings, whether the design will permit that. So all the aspect has to look into for individual cases, but we should start thinking about it and start doing it to see if it is feasible. So we did a study, especially for Bangladesh, looking into like CCHP system in buildings. And we showed that the primary energy consumption by applying this type of system in buildings from the reference building after applications of CCHP, the significant primary energy consumption is reduced. We can see some of the numbers. If we combine some of the performance of the building and efficiency of the building, if you look at the x-axis, okay? Same way, I can see here there is a simple payback period, like that you are investing money and when you'll get the money back, right? That's the key idea, because you don't want to spend money if you don't get benefit out of it. And you can see here, based on if you combine some of the buildings together and apply these type of ideas, you can recuperate the investment in very short time, 1 or 2 years. It's also possible. So that's why it's a collective success, but it's a very challenging framework because we can even stay in the same house. So how can we work together in 40 buildings or 80 buildings together? But that's why there's a government intervention and things like that will be helpful. So we looked into solar. I'm not going to go into that with the CCHP system, but it shows that there is my preliminary finding shows that it is providing additional benefit with energy if we combine CCHP with solar. So we looked into also adopting wind energy in CCSP system in a previous work we did for a BAPABEN conference, and we showed that it can generate significant energy, and there are some annual savings, and also there is a simple payback period for investment that will make early. As you know, renewables need an early investment. So this is for buildings. I'm just for the time I'm switching back to agriculture and then combine them and complete this. So for agro-based country, like agricultural sector is one of the dominant energy sinks for Bangladesh, and we actually can give the farmers a lot of independence and benefit by adopting renewable energy. Again, please take my word with caution, because we need to do some Bangladesh-based work to really go to the conclusion. But this is the high time that we should do it. Okay. So I want to show you that there is a lot of water and carbon footprint you have. You can see water footprint and carbon footprint for different type of crops and food that we consume. So we need to actually think of that, whether the agricultural sector, can we make them energy neutral or energy positive sector for Bangladesh, right? That's the idea that we are proposing now. So we did again, modeling work for different type of crops like wheat, maize, tomato, potato, rice, cabbage, and bean for like a land-based agricultural system. And we total energy required, you saw that that's needed to run this. We assume some parameters you can see at the bottom. I will not go into that. So pumping water and other aspect is there. So we can show that there is excess amount of energy that can be produced from a 0.5 hectare land. And even because there are issues with shading and how it impacts the crops, we did a study like looking into different percentage of shaded area in the land. So for wheat, when you're changing the shaded area, the number of excess generation is changing. So we can optimize the growth of crops who are shade tolerant, and then who are not shade tolerant, we can then probably go into lower shading area and implement this accordingly for Bangladesh. So we did the similar effort for, again, agricultural sector for wind, and we looked into different locations. I can explain the methodology. There are other team members who did this. So we can again see there is a total energy generated for different parts of Bangladesh with the wind speed that we found in the literature, how much annual savings you have, and how much SPPP means simple payback period, how long it will take to pay back. So there are some government intervention and investment needed so that the general public can be encouraged to pursue this at least for first few years as a pilot case, so that we can see the benefit and we can identify the challenges of this. I'm going to skip that because geothermal energy will be too expensive to do it, but it is feasible in Bangladesh, but the benefit might not be a lot. But I wanted to show you that we have looked into that also for Bangladeshi context, and it's also doable, but I personally think it's not really practical for Bangladesh at this point.
You have 2 minutes, Dr. Azam.
Thank you. Yeah. So we did some agrovoltaic system in the University of District of Columbia, my students and some collaborators. So because of the time, I'm not going to go into the system. It is a very complicated system, but of course, there is the engineering aspect of it that you don't see when you live at houses or other places, but we can make it work for. So what we did, we grew crops of different type. You can see the list of crops under solar panel in different angles. So we wanted to optimize all different type of crops, water collection from the solar panel, and then also grow, optimize the energy production also. So this is the summary of it. Because of the time, I'm going to just briefly tell you that look here on the right-hand side. This is the control plot, means that has no solar panel, and this is all the different angle of solar panel. Clearly, in some of the crops, and we use 6 crops. You can see here the list. For most of them, or all of them, when we had shaded area, different angle, it performed very better. Like, so they're growing better. They have a large leaf area. They have large leaf number, plant height, and all of this. So it's a good outcome. So I'm going to wrap it up now because of the time. But one thing I want to say this, and I said that before, that when we are adopting renewable energy, we all talked about renewable energy. One of the biggest aspects we should also think, and we should have a framework for Bangladesh, is the renewable energy waste. Okay, so there is a significant amount of waste will be generated if we keep adopting renewable energy, and we have to have some different plan how we're going to deal with those waste that going to generate it for Bangladesh. And last slide that I'm going to go into, and we can discuss in the QA session if you want to go into details, that there are some barriers for adopting renewable energy for Bangladesh. There are some economic barriers, there are some technical barriers, and there are some political and regulatory barriers, and there are some social and cultural barriers, and of course there are environmental and geographical barriers. So we as a country, we can look into all these barriers and we can talk about how we can eliminate them. So of course we need a high investment and we need some effort from the government. We can do some innovative ideas like private government partnership. We can have a technical group formed. We can teach this more elaborately in our schools. We can have a skilled labor. We should have a political commitment to this. And of course, we can educate people like through this type of talk for longer time. We can have workshop, we can educate people, and hopefully we can adopt this for Bangladesh, of course, through a lot of evaluation and vetting of this type of process. With that, I want to acknowledge all my students and my collaborator here, and also BAPA band leaders, because BAPA conference has been promoted this type of work for my group. And then there are different funding agencies where I got some funding, and my colleagues and students and staffs who helped me to come this far. I think I rushed a little bit, but I hope you got the message that what I wanted to give you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Azam. Actually, today's session was really enlightening, and আমার যেটা মনে হয় যে বেনের যে expertise আছে, the expertise, it's a showcase actually today's webinar. I thank all the speakers, Ghulam Kabir, Masood Karim, and Hussein Azam. Each one of them brought different aspects of the renewable energy situation, and I'm sure in the discussion section we'll talk more about it. I'll hand over now the floor to Dr. Badruzaman, and he can basically go from here. Thank you.
Okay, I'm getting going here again. I really enjoyed all these talks. I learned a lot. I thought I knew everything, but I don't. So, তোমাকে unshare করছো because you cut off my presentation.
No, oh, okay. আপনি আবার চেষ্টা করতে পারেন, আপনাকে দেখা যাচ্ছে।
Let me try again.
We cannot see you also, by the way. Your video is not on.
Yeah, your video.
Okay, yeah, if you can hear me, I'll get the video on in a minute. I'm just trying to get back to where I was. Something happened and then it went away. Oh my God, where is Ben? Okay.
In the meantime, I'll just read.
Give me a second. I'm almost there. Okay.
হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে, আপনি করুন, আমি এখানে একটা কমেন্ট পড়ছি। Mr. Venkat has said that I'm happy to have participated in this session. It was insightful, and I truly appreciated the presentations on renewable energy. I have to leave now for another meeting. Please continue with your discussions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Venkat, for joining us. That's wonderful. So what I'm going to do now, before I give my comments on the talks, which is what I was hoping to do only, because Professor Badrul Karim could not make it, I wanted to represent his views here. So let's see. You will have to help
Dr. Badrul Imam, not Karim. He is a very renowned geologist in Bangladesh. Badrul Imam.
Yes, he is, and he has been at the forefront of this conversation in Bangladesh. So we are all outsiders. Doesn't matter what we say. So he has been at this forefront. Let me see if I can share. Oh, good Lord.
আপনার ভিডিওটা on.
আচ্ছা, আমার video, okay, but I want to first share. Okay.
There you go.
Share my screen. There it is. Can you see my screen now?
No.
No.
Dr. Bodzaman, if you want, you can email it to us. Or it's
Oh,
coming.
now it's coming in.
Now
Yeah,
it's coming, right?
Mhm.
Okay,
Make it
then I
bigger.
go back to this little thing here. Is it big?
No. You have to make it maybe under view. Under view, maybe you can.
It's asking me to stop sharing. Why is it asking me to stop sharing?
No, that's just a button. I don't need to.
I don't need to pay attention to it.
Yeah, pay attention to it, right?
Okay. Do you see my screen at all?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes,
do.
but it's very small. You can expand it by clicking on the upper right-hand corner. Yeah, here, right there.
There?
Yeah, and now you go to the lower right corner, and yes, right there. Yeah, please
I
click on
did.
it.
Does it look bigger now?
No, it isn't.
I think you can continue, Dr. Bodzaman.
Yeah, this is okay. We can see.
Yeah, we can see it. We can see it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. So basically, I'm going to I took some of stuff from his writings. So domestic Bangladesh gas, I'm talking about domestic gas. So according to all geological markers, Bangladesh has large gas reserves onshore and offshore. A lot of it is unexplored. And often what happens in Bangladesh, wells are discarded, declared dry and abandoned without a full analysis. It's a lack of technology, stuff. Petrobangla does a great job, and still they need support. Yet the previous government went for import of LNG, which is something that Dr. Imam talks a lot about. The objective was LNG would be supplied 40% of the electricity in 2025, 50 by 2030, and 70 by 2040. So he wrote an article in Daily Star. I think academic writings don't get the attention, so he wrote it in the newspaper. He said, solution lies in local gas, not imported LNG. That was in 2018. My comment is, LNG is very expensive. The cost differential is about 2 to 3 times. And to me, as somebody who has studied this issue, it doesn't really make sense. So my question is, what is going on here? The second point Dr. Imam makes is that offshore Bangladesh has major gas potential in the Rakhine Basin of Chittagong. Rakhine Basin is the same geological block that Myanmar shares, and Myanmar has discovered major reserves of gas. So why there is no drilling program there? Well, one is, of course, the issue of technology. But if technology is an issue, it can be procured. In fact, in my view, offshore gas technology acquisition will be a lot cheaper than the risky Rupur plant that we have spent $12.5 billion to build. So my question again is, what is going on? So with that, I will stop on this part of the presentation. I don't look anything like Dr. Imam. He's a lot younger than I am. So with that, keep that in thought. So as the chairperson, I want to commend all the other 3 speakers for the fantastic talks that they gave. Ghulam Kabir, my apologies. I did not make it clear that you need to show your slides, but you made great points. And because it is sugarcane, I am happy to hear that biofuel can be used. If you are talking about corn, then I would not agree, because corn is a net energy user. Sugarcane, on the other hand, is a great idea. Well, one question, and I'll let the others ask the questions. I'll have questions at the end if anybody wants to hear that. Mr. Masood Karim, thanks a lot for the great presentation. And I would like to follow up on how things are going in your projects in Bangladesh. If you, I don't know whether you have started on them or not. It was not clear from your presentation whether you're going on with those projects in Bangladesh, especially in my Hakuluki Haur in Sylhet, where I come from. And Dr. Azam, I give him a lot of hard time because he's a kid. We need young people and enlightened and energetic people like him in our mix. So thanks for covering a lot of ground. What I would hope that you can do at least 1 or 2 projects to Bangladesh, in Bangladesh, and share your results with us. So with that, I turn it over back to Dr. Bhattacharya to run the Q&A. I hope there are enough questions, and I hope you can, join the conversation. Let me get rid of my slides so that Irfan, I think you can get rid of my sharing, or do I need to unshare or stop share? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Badiuzzzaman. I am going to hand over the session to both Dr. Irfan and Dr. Azam. They will actually continue from here. Again, I thank everybody who are in the audience today and are looking at the live stream, and also the speakers here, and also the chair. I thank the chair, of course, over this thing, and our global coordinator, Dr. Khalik. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya. Dr. Irfan, you are here. Also, I will request you to also take some of the leadership. So we are at the QA session now. So anybody has any questions or comments at this point from the audience?
I do have a comment. I raised my hand.
Yes. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Khalikuzaman.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed all this presentation. Needless to say, these are really, really substantive presentations. I have, few quick questions for each of the, presenters. Masood Karim mentioned about the floating solar voltaics, and I'm a bit confused about the area required for such, plants. He mentioned 150 megawatt plants. I think Dr. Benkat is left us now, so we can
Yes.
ask even the questions in Bangla if we want to. So, but nevertheless, 150 megawatt plants in China. He mentioned about 100 megawatt plants require about 100 hectares of land. In Pakistan, there are 2 plants, one 800 hectares, one 400 hectares, total of 1200 hectares, only for 300 megawatts. So in other words, for some of his projects, if I understood correctly, 1 megawatt per hectare. More or less, you need 1 hectare of land to produce 1 megawatt. But in Pakistani case, it's like 1 to 3. It goes up to 1 megawatt requires 3 hectares of land, more or less. Why are these discrepancies? Number one, or if I understood correctly. Secondly, for Bangladesh, we are an environmental organization. Whether it is really wise to even mention the name of Hakaluki as one of the potential place for such plant, even Cholonbil. These are the heritage sites that we are trying to protect, not to really interfere with. So we being the environmental organization, Kaptai, yes, maybe. So those are the 2 questions for him. The discrepancy about the area requirement, and in Bangladesh, where can you find this kind of area? As I said, I personally don't think Hakaluki and Cholonbil is a good idea, whether coastal areas are. For Ghulam Kabir, of course, it's a good presentation. His coconut oil idea, as we think that it's good, but we need some sort of a feasibility. What's the total production of sugar cane in Bangladesh, coconut in Bangladesh? Those crops have other uses in Bangladesh. Whether we have enough to make any dent, any changes in our energy mix with the production that we have domestically. For Hussein Azam, it's a beautiful presentation. I really, really enjoyed, but I thought it was very rushed. We need to have him present it for a whole hour, because these are the ideas that we need to hear a little bit more in depth. And so I think that it was very good. Again, I lost track of his cost amount, like $1.53 billion or so. We are spending only 5.3% for energy. We need to spend more. I want him to clarify some of those. And finally, Dr. Badrul Imam, he's not here, but me being a geologist, and I've attended Badrul Imam's presentation many times, including this time. at BAPABEN conference that we just hold like last month in Dhaka. He was one of the presenters. So his emphasis predominantly, Dr. Badrul Imam, Dr. Ahmed Badrul Zaman pointed it out correctly. He does not give much of any technicality. He talks about how we need to put a lot more emphasis on domestic, exploration of natural gas, both on land and offshore. So that is here really his gist. He thinks that since Bangladesh is a deltaic country, being the deltaic geologic setting, he shows that how similar geologic setting absolutely can produce gas like in Nigeria, in other deltaic countries, in Rakhine and even in Godavari Delta. So that is his really premise, that we need to increase our, exploration initiative in Bangladesh. So, he doesn't give the actual, like solid numbers that basin in Bangladesh has that kind of a potential, like percentage-wise, 95%, confidence or not. He just talks about we need more exploration because similar geologic setting for sure can produce gases. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khalikuzaman. Dr. Masood Karim, you want to take that question first, and then Dr. Kobe, then I can go.
Yeah, I will do that. Number one, the surface area used for 150 watt.
We lost you, Dr. Masood Karim.
Is Dr.
Though
Karim
I
still
can
there?
see you and your mic is on, but we cannot hear you. So, Mr. Ghulam Kabir, you wanna try to answer the question first, and then
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So the question addressed is whether we have resources to fulfill the requirement, what I was talking about. I am not talking about the current resources we have, sugarcane or coconut or corn oil. My presentation is directed for future planning. If we have a plan to produce more sugarcane and we want to go to this ethanol project, there we can. We have the land, we have the resources, but we need to have a plan to make more sugarcane only to make ethanol. So we have to have a government future plan to go for this renewable energy. So we have to make sugarcane. We have that land. And coconut, we can increase the production of coconut in our remote areas, especially along the shores. We can increase the production of coconut, and if we go for a plan, we can increase the production of soybean oil. So all these will have to plan out to produce more, and from there produce renewable energy, which we can then reduce the use of fossil fuel. So that we have to have a future plan for that. But currently, I am not sure how much production we have to make all these projects, but we have to have a plan, future plan to produce all these resources to start going to the renewable diesel, jet, and ethanol, what I am proposing.
Thank you.
Mr.
Mr. Masood Karim, are you back?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Can you
all right,
answer
sorry.
that? And there is a comment here in the chat also, if you want to add that to your answer, is that Mr. Farad Reza told that what is the environmental impact of floating solar panel? So please go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how much you heard. I had some audio issue again.
No, actually, we couldn't hear you for a long time, so we lost.
Okay, all right. So Khalek Bhai's question was in China, 150 megawatt required 320 hectare. And then in Pakistan, why is 165 hectare for 100 megawatt? So Chinese one was implemented in 2018 in operation. And the Pakistan one started, the study was 2022, right? So with the time, panel size has been significantly improved. panel size and efficiency also. And then how you design the panel, the floats, and then the power plants is also depend, right? So I think, I mean, that's the primary reason I can tell you. For 800 and 400 hectare are the total water body size. So total requirement of the 150 megawatt generation is 165 hectare in both sides. Now, the question of Hakaluki and Cholon. In one hand, we have been discussing with the renewable energy, and then on the other hand, we don't want to compromise a little bit with anything else. If we can, through the study, if we see that environmental impacts can be minimized through different hierarchy mitigation measures, I don't think, it would be an issue for us to handle. The issue is whether we are degrading the water bodies or not, whether we are affecting the aquatic ecosystem or not. So if through the study, if we understand, if we feel that through different mitigation measures, those can be reduced or mitigated, I think why not? What is the problem? We have a small land with 160 million people, right? So all resources has to be, utilized as much as possible without compromising the impact of the environment. Then the other issue with I think the
environmental impact of floating solar panel. They wanted to know what are the typical concern.
No, Azam, before he goes there, so I want him to address a little bit more about Hakaluki and Cholonville. If it's a, ban webinar, we cannot say why not. That's Hakaluki is our heritage site. We have to have that discussion.
Yeah, Dr. Mrs. Madkurim, so Dr. Khalekuzzaman want you to. So you wanna make any comment, Dr. Khalekuzzaman, or he said what he felt about those approach, that if we can do some study and the environmental impact is not is permissible, then maybe not. Why not? So, but if you want to comment,
let's have a discussion between the two of them at this point.
Yes.
I think this will be interesting.
Sure.
If you have more questions, yeah, let's use that time to do that actually. Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Khalekuzzaman, you go ahead. I think it's your turn.
As I said, that we are an environmental organization, and our prime goal is to, save the environment to the extent possible, especially for the really, really very important, heritage sites, such as Sundarban, such as Hakaluki, such as Cholonville. So when he mentioned Hakaluki, I didn't say anything about Kaptai, because Kaptai is already a lake. And he also mentioned that how those projects are good when those projects are near the existing hydel plants, right? So Kaptai is okay in my mind, but Hakaluki is we as an environmental organization, I think that will be even to start the conversation. We can say, well, why not in Sundarban if we can reduce the impact? So that was more of a question to him, that being an environmental organization, how Hakaluki came to his mind as one of the potential site, that should be a big no-no in my mind.
Okay.
And Cholonville is the same way.
Okay.
So
Okay, thank
I
you.
was asking him to defend being an environmental organization, especially Hakaluki is such an important Ramsar site and all this. So
Okay,
Dr. Korim, do you want to respond or you want to move on?
Yeah, I know. During the studies, what we normally do, we assess the environmental impacts of a protected area. If it's a Ramsar site or it's a national protected area, we need to see whether the impacts of the environment is significant, right? And if it is, whether there are ways to minimize them, right? So that's what we do. So I propose the potential site, and then we have to figure out whether the environmental impacts would be significant or not. These are all huge water bodies, and my proposal was only 10%, because there's no other site available in the country, right? So whatever is available, we just do the feasibility study and also assess the environmental impacts and then see whether these are feasible or not. So that's only I can tell you at this stage, because there's no study done so far on these water bodies. Now, the second one is the environmental assessment. We have done for the Pakistan one, the interference with the mooring line, with the fish, and we propose different mitigation measures to reduce the impact of the aquatic species. And I found that this is possible. Now, each site has its own characteristics, and that needs to be, studied separately. Other than that, floating, so, and then also some sort of, the lighting, and there are technologies available, glass-to-glass panels, and that can also reduce the coverings and then the light infiltration into the water bodies. So it depends all depending on the site, and then we can do that as well, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will, before I answer your question, I want to read few comments that came in the chat. Okay. So we can think of how we can cut down electrical and fossil fuel being used in the aquaculture industry. That was the comment by Dr. Shahar. And then another comment is iPhone. So I don't know who is that. So first we need to know the social and environmental assessment and environmental impact analysis. Do we have it? And I think Dr. Karim is also talking about that we have to have it before we even consider going there. And another question from Sharmin Tuli, you asked, is there any future of energy production from pollutants? So did you mean like we use recycling some of the pollutants to generate energy? Sharmin Tuli, if you want to clarify, and whom you are asking the question to.
Thank you so much. Pollution is that's actually harmful for environment, like plastic or some other things that that also reason for water pollution or ocean pollution. So
আপনাকে
if
পরে
there
ফোন দিব বলতেছি।
any possibility to produce energy from this pollutant, sometimes we had seen some headline in paper like someone produce biofuel or fuel from plastic or polybag or polythene. So if there any future of this?
Anybody wants to take that question? If not, I can try. Sharmin Tuli, is that there are two aspects. If it is a synthetic plastic, then recycling is the best option. And then, as you know, microplastic, even we're trying to get rid of plastic use because they could be found even in the deep ocean, as you know. But biodegradable plastic, they are a lot of work being done at this point, and a lot of people are working on biodegradable plastic. Then actually you can use the biodegradable plastic to, of course, do anaerobic digestion and degradation to generate energy from them. In the past, I can tell you, I probably heard about is incinerator. So, but there is a lot of environmental regulations on that. So you can take plastic, you can burn them and get some energy out of it. There are some processes like that. But those are very, very expensive process, and also there are a lot of environmental regulations goes with it, and there are a lot of expensive process because they create a lot of carcinogenic compounds when you burn plastic and try to generate energy from that process. But so to answer your question as a summary, if it is a biodegradable plastic, I would think yes, we can use them for generating energy. But if it is not, probably we should try to get rid of the use of plastic as much as we can, especially single-use plastic. Thank you.
Dr. Azam, can I take that question?
Yes, please, Dr. Bozaman, please go ahead. Yes.
Okay. So if you include carbon dioxide as one of the pollutants, there are ideas now, they have been around for a long time. It takes a lot of energy to do that, to convert CO2 to hydrogen or methane. In fact, it was a French Nobel laureate who came up with this. It's called Sabatier. Sabatier equation basically does that. Question is how much, and you need a catalyst for it. Typically, I teach that in my class at Berkeley. So, but it's an expensive process. At this point, you need about 300 degrees centigrade catalyst. The Japanese have just come out with a 65 degrees catalyst. That means it needs a much less energy. So I'm trying to connect with them to see what we can do. So there are ideas of using plastic, or using pollutants. If you expand the word pollutants to carbon dioxide, to do that. But your points are, well, plastics are a very hard one. They're fossil fuels to start with. So you have to be careful about thinking about that. They're expensive process. But this is a great idea. One comment I would like to make, something that I've learned from studying this issue. We do not have unlimited resources. So we cannot just keep building solar plants all over the world and covering the earth with solar plants. At one point, we'll run out of minerals. So we have to come up with the ideas for what we think is pollutant, or we need to be able to reuse some of their stuff or convert it to something else. And I think that's where science will come in. But you raise a very good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Badruzzzaman. There is a comment by Muhammad Mukhteruzzaman. So the question was, or comment was, Hakaluki Howard is an ECA. Is it allowed to even consider this kind of infrastructure? I don't know what is ECA. What
It's
is ECA?
environmentally critical area in Bangladesh.
Okay,
ECA.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
that was my question to start with.
That was Khaled's question, right?
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge his comment. So let's move on. I think we had the discussion. I'm going to answer your question, Dr. Khalekuzzaman. Actually, it was very surprising to me when I was researching this recently for this talk for Bangladesh. We are talking a lot in Bangladesh about renewable energy and investment in renewable energy, but the government sector, they also had a lot of lofty goals. But actually the dollar amount, or the taka amount went to renewables is very, very less compared to the target they have. That was the point I was trying to make, and making you some numbers. And I researched it last night also because I wanted to be very thorough and I wanted to be very correct. So it seems like they are investing very less amount of money till this new government came. Hopefully it will change. Less than 1% even the amount of money they invest in power and energy sector to renewables. Though they make a big headline, like this is 1 billion taka is going to renewables, but with context to overall energy investment, overall budget, this is very tiny. I'm not sure anybody else want to take a
Yeah, I want to speak on this one. I mean, this is the question. I think Ahmed Badruzzzaman, he was also mentioning why we are importing LNG, why not exploration? And this came out from the presentation of the documents shared by Professor Budul Amin, right? Imam Budul Imam, sorry. The issue in Bangladesh is, importing something is easy money, right? So when you are exploring something, you have to do feasibility study, investment in the studies. That's only a small amount of money. So I mean, I think it's all because of the corruption. I was involved in a project in Bangladesh on Jamuna River Economic Corridor. In our project, because dredging was not included, that's the reason why the project has been, disapproved by the top of the government. So we were asked to include dredging in the project so that the project will be approved, right? And then dredging is also another easy money, right? Because they just dredge from one location and then dispose the spoil to the other part of the river. So the overall response is the corruption. That's the primary reason. So it's everything is no investment in renewable is another reason because you cannot make huge amount of money. It's a mega project, it's mega corruption, right? So that's the primary reason for this type of import, coal import, LNG import, everything is import based, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kurmi. It's a great point you made, and hopefully things will change for Bangladesh and will not be as unlucky in the future. Anybody wants to make any comments or any questions?
Azam, may I request you to invite Dr. Nazrul Islam to say something, because he did the keynote presentation when we had that
energy conference.
When we had the energy conference.
Yes.
So I know he's humble, so he's not speaking out for himself. So
Sure,
I'd like
absolutely.
him to
Yes.
make
Yes.
some comments.
Yeah, because I'm doing my 12 role from speaker to anchoring, so I lost track of this. So Dr. Nazrul Islam, are you here? Do you want to make some comments on the talk and any other comments you have about energy future for Bangladesh? Dr. Islam, Nazrul Islam, Nazrul Bhai?
Nazrul, তুমি আছো?
Yes, I'm here. I was not, planning to speak here because,
Just take a couple of minutes to say something, please.
well, first of all, I appreciate the organizers. It has been a very informative and very useful event discussion. I learned a lot. Just to put in a broader context, as has already been mentioned, Bangladesh has done little in the area of renewables. There was a lot of talk, a lot of show, installation of one solar panel on Bongo Bhavan, another on Central Bank, whatever. But until 2018, there was only 330 megawatt, and that was even just about 1/5 of what they had targeted to produce from renewables in 2020. So this has been all talk, nothing. And that is just one feature of the overall very dissatisfactory state of energy and electricity situation in Bangladesh. And it is a disaster. And it has been, this sector, instead of being a driver of the economy, has become a burden on the economy. And it is all because of wrong policies. And that's why the main points have already been emphasized by others. The country moved towards coal. The country moved towards imported coal and imported LNG, imported other fuels, neglecting domestic exploration of gas, neglecting renewables, everything. So everything went in the wrong direction. And also import. It's so horrendous that they prepared a plan called PSMMS, Power Sector Master Plan, in which they allowed the role of import in total electricity in Bangladesh from about 3% to 15% by 2040. It is simply, difficult to even, think how they could, come up with that kind of a plan. That means, and whereas, as you know, if you compare that planning with the actual situation, we now have about 35,000 megawatt capacity, and it is widely reported that about 30–40% of that remained unused. So we have domestic capacity unused. On the other hand, we are increasing import. So it's all mind-boggling. And the reason for this kind of irrational policies is because policies are not adopted on the basis of national interest and on the basis of interest of the people. It's all pushed. It's different vested interest taking over the energy policy, and that's why we have this anti-national, anti-people energy situation in Bangladesh. So we had this conference, Bapaben, 2023, and then, as you know, we were in Bangladesh, both Dr. Khalek and myself, during this December and January, and we held a press conference come discussion of the impact of the coal plants that have already been working in Bangladesh for quite some time. And we brought people from the actual sites of those coal plants so that they could narrate their own experience to the people in Dhaka. The people in Dhaka, they talk a lot, but they hardly actually go to the sites where actual things are unfolding. So by contrast, from Bapa, I myself went to Paira, I myself went to Matarbari, Khalek also went to different places. I went to Rampal. So so that's why I don't want to make it a big spill. So one thing that we emphasized in that program, in that press conference, is that, as you know, this current government has formed about 15 commissions. But it did not care to form a commission on the energy sector. which is probably the most messed up sector, and which is probably the most important sector that needs to be straightened. So one of the demands that we made in that press conference, and as you know, well-known Professor Anu Mohammed, who has been leading a lot of struggles to have a more pro-people, pro-environment energy policy in Bangladesh, he was there. And he also spoke emphatically about it. And overall, we, as a kind of resolution of that press conference, one of the demands was to put forward to the government to form an energy commission with appropriate people in the leadership who could kind of, just like the white paper that was produced on the economy as a whole, there is an intense need for a white paper on the energy sector. And on that basis, directions for the future is very urgent. And I think if we want to publicize a summary of this webinar today, Ben, we can also kind of emphasize as a kind of what came out as recommendations from this webinar. As one of the recommendations is that we need on an urgent basis a commission focused on the energy sector, and that commission should be examining the situation and suggest ways in terms of how to direct the energy situation to pro-environment, pro-people. In terms of the things that were discussed today, just to say a few things, I was very benefited, and I liked all the different options that were discussed here in one webinar. I agree that all these require a lot of detailed discussion. So we had discussion about hydro, we had hydro,
Biofuel.
Yeah, what do you call it? Then we had bio, we had discussion of agriculture, etc. My thing, understand, I'm not an expert, but I think in Bangladesh we have to promote things that are kind of dispersed, and that would rely more on household and private initiatives and multi-use, etc. Those are them. For example, in terms of renewables, I think a big push should be given towards this installation of solar panel on rooftops. It's not very difficult if just government promulgates a policy that any new constructed house or building has to have this kind of solar tops. Then and as you know, we can have feed-in tariff, and the households can use that, and that can supply the access to the national grid, etc. So those are the kind of decentralized policies, and which don't require excessive, new resources, etc. That's the direction, I think. And I know with regard to solar panel, I saw solar panels now being manufactured in the form of thin films, yes, which can be bundled up, which can be so that's the direction in which we should proceed. And Bangladesh has attained quite a bit of industrial capacity now, so we can target manufacturing of solar panel domestically as an area to be.
Dr. Nazrul Islam, I want you to continue.
So let me finish.
I want you to continue actually, Dr. Nazrul Islam. Just the live stream will going to be stopped in 30 seconds. So thank you for your comments. I just formally want to end this webinar, but then Dr. Nazrul Islam, we want to listen to your comments more, and you can.
Azam, you can't end the webinar. I end the webinar.
Yeah.
Okay?
So Dr. Islam, go ahead and please conclude the webinar we have 1 minute for the.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I finish up. I thank all of you. I thank Nazrul for your comments. I think the corruption angle has been talked about over and over again. I don't think anybody's paying a lot of attention. And the idea of the Energy Commission has been around for a long time. You remember, you had me do a Ben energy set of recommendations about 10, 15, 20 years ago. We made that recommendation there, but it didn't really happen. So we need to keep trying. At your level, you should keep trying. On the other hand, this seminar was very technical. So I'd love for our technical people to continue thinking about what they're doing. Yes, there are obstacles. Dr. Masud Khurram faced a number of questions. He needs to go back and think about them. Dr. Ghulam Kabir had some questions. He needs to go back and think about them. And Dr. Azam too. So let's give our best technical advice that you can give and see where it goes. And I let Nazrul and others and Khalek worry about the politics of these things. So with that, I'll take your leave. Thank you very much.